Speaking of reliability, a podcast with good friends talking with you about reliability engineering topics. Welcome to Speaking of Reliability. This is Fred Schenkelberg.
And this is Kirk Gray.
Once again, Kirk, we started off on a topic and I thought, I got to hit record when we're chatting here, talking about what we're going to talk about.
It's pretty easy for us to
we just
go off on a tangent pretty fast.
Well, yeah, we do. And it's like, wait, let me hit record. So the notion that we were just touching on, and I wanted to get your impression on it, is how do you, in an organization, in a development team or in a factory that you're trying to improve the reliability or create a product that is reliable enough for your customers, and it's based something on a question I got from a couple of months ago. And it was, I'm starting a new reliability position. What advice would you give me? And it's like, well, where do you start? And part of this is what we were just talking about is, we know a lot about all these different tools and approaches and techniques and when and why to use them and stuff like that. Somebody starting out doesn't have that 20 plus years of experience of what to do. And they open up the first textbook and they learn about MTBF and parts count prediction.
Right.
And they think that's reliability and they're off doing that. And I'm like, there's a gap here of it's built into, I don't think it's unique to reliability, but there's a lot of ways to design a mechanical hinge.
Right.
Right. And an experienced person go, given these loads and frequency use this style. Right. Whereas somebody's brand new out of school, they've learned about 25 different kinds of hinges, but maybe not which one would be appropriate. And in reliability, you may be familiar with the Weibull distribution and a couple other formulas and a couple other concepts or ideas, but which one works when? And so the dilemma is that you need to be familiar enough with a broad range of tools. There's a lot of techniques and tools and activities we get into just in failure analysis. How do I analyze this? There's all kinds of tools out there for us to use. Well, what's appropriate, right?
Right.
If you don't know about that range, it's really difficult, in my opinion, to pick the right one or pick a reasonable tool or method. And the advice I gave to this question a while ago was, well, one, listen, what's important to the organization? What are the priorities? What's all this stuff. And it's not just use a tool and turn a crank because that's what they always do. Right. Is what's important to the organization and what would help them achieve that objective, or whether it's lowering cost or shipping on time or whatever. Then go look, what's the problem you're trying to solve? What's the piece of information you're trying to create? Then go look for tools and activities to go do it. Right. So I wanted to bounce that off you, is because I know it's been a while since you started a brand new position and had no experience. But what would you say to somebody who said, I just out of school, got hired as a reliability engineer.
Okay.
And it's like, now what do I do?
And you're talking about a company that just was created from the ground up, never has had a product out before.
It was a paper
never
mill.
manufactured anything.
She's a new reliability engineer joining a paper mill.
A paper mill.
Yeah.
Okay. The first thing I would do, and coming into that company, was go through the whatever the problem was, whatever they were complaining about, or whatever they had problems. You just said it. Listen to what and gather as much as you can. Now that can be very difficult to do as far as the history of failures. There's either some guy that didn't write anything down and said, "Oh yeah, we had this problem. I fixed it though. Don't worry," and he didn't write down anything about it, or whatever. Because really, what's important to that company is not in books. It's what is in that company. It's the other things like all the things I talk about with HALT are general, but it's really getting down to when you get in a company and get into a new position, the first thing is to seek to understand what the situation is, and especially if it's a reliability issue, all the reliability issues that they've had and how they've mitigated them, how they've corrected them, how they found them, whatever.
Or is there even a system there to do that?
Or if
If
there's a
it's
system to
just
do
straight
that.
off, baling
Right.
wire and duct tape and
That's right.
firefighting all the time.
That's right. Nobody wrote anything down about it. Then that's one of the fundamental problems that you need to address in the company.
Or if there's an infinite number of opportunities depending on
Right.
the circumstance. It
Right.
could be they do everything really well, except their failure analysis is terrible. They just, blame the component.
Right. They blame the component. They say, "Oh, that's infant mortality."
It was
God,
bad quality. It was operator error, or
Right.
it was abuse by the customer, or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah.
Then, no, you
It's
need
not
to
our
understand
fault.
it. Yeah, it's not our problem. Or is it an amazing failure analysis thing, but they don't follow up and don't actually implement the changes? Maybe that's a management decision process. But the first step is, what are the problems that are important and that I have the skill set or background or some knowledge or can get that knowledge to go focus on and solve, that will make a difference.
Right. It's kind of one of the 7 habits of successful people, right? By Covey, that said, first seek out and understand the situation before you say anything.
Yep.
Don't open your mouth. You realize that,
Well, I lost it. I thought it would be a really cool job. And they said the first question was, well, what are you're going to be a reliability engineer. What do you expect to be doing? And I said, well, I'll work with the design team to make sure we have a robust design and a reliable product. And go, oh, wait there. You're not ever going to talk to the design team. You stay in the lab over there and do testing. And
Exactly.
it's like, all right, well, that ain't going to work. I'm out of here.
Well, didn't you talk about silos?
Yeah.
One of your recent podcasts, I think I saw with somebody else.
Yeah, that was fun. But yeah, it's
there. You go. That's right. It's
what do you mean I can't talk to the design team? It's always the designer's fault.
Yeah,
come on.
Exactly. So, right. It's first seeking to understand. I mean, before anything, and I just think when you go into the companies and not look at books, nothing like that. When you go into the company's records and you come and you talk to some of the engineers, especially if you can find a field service guy or somebody in the warranty repair department or something like that, and really talk to them, because there's probably a lot of stuff is not written down. A lot of stuff is tribal knowledge and inside, and it's just getting, obviously, if you're a new person to a company, you kind of have to understand the culture too a little bit. Who gets rewarded for what, and you're trying to make your management happy. That's the end. Whether the product's reliable or not, you're giving them answers that they're happy with. Sometimes it can't.
I think that's dangerous advice. You do not give people answers to make them happy. You give them information so they can make better decisions. Then they get results they like. If I had a boss that did that once, it was back when I was an engineering team at a factory floor, manufacturing engineering, and part of the routine is we had to do an experiment every day, whether it was relevant for what we're doing or not. But it was a way for us to learn all the different tools for conducting experiments, and whether it was design of experiments or control charts or hypothesis testing. It was a great learning experience. Sometimes we did silly stuff just to meet the daily requirement, and sometimes we did really breakthrough stuff that made a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
But we gained so much experience that we knew what we were doing when it was an important experiment.
Okay.
Which was great. But one day I was working on something, and it was actually something that I thought would make a big difference. And I was getting indication of results, but it wasn't conclusive yet. I needed to run some more trials and different samples and stuff. And he looked at it and goes, well, that's not giving me an answer I want. Go get some more samples and make sure it gets the answer I want. And I said, well, I'd save a whole lot of time if you told me what the answer is, and I'd just tell you that's
exactly.
it.
That's it. That's what you wanted.
If you're not going to believe the data, then why do I bring you any? And he looked at me like, go get more data.
Well, there you go. I've I've done predictions where the guy says, "Oh, that's
too
too
low.
high."
Too high. You got to
No, too
lower it.
high.
Too
Right,
high.
you got to lower it. So like you've had this is too, according to your calculation, this is too reliable. And I go, what? And so it really didn't matter. But that's the guy that's going to, give you a raise or at the end of your year or the review. And in reliability, this is one of the other problems. It has such a long-term period to see if it actually comes to fruition. You make a change, but it could be a year or two before
Well,
you.
even longer in some
It's
places.
long, maybe even longer in some places. By that time, you're out. You may have changed positions 3 times,
Yeah.
or your manager's gone.
Well, there's one of the things Carl talked about at GM is that the senior folks were basically on a particular rotation, basically. So they'd be in charge of the manufacturing process or the design process or the whatever process for like 2 years.
Yeah,
And then they had to make a mark in 2 years. Otherwise, they weren't going to get promoted to the next spot they had to go to.
right,
So they were always very short term
right,
and make a big ruckus and noise and change stuff because you couldn't just
right.
build on the previous one and make it actually pay off. Because nobody was looking long term, and that's
No,
and I think there's that combined with people are so much more mobile now. And it's not my observations, but anecdotally, as my grandfather worked for the same company
right,
for 40,
right.
45 years. My dad worked for the same company for 20, 25 years. I think the max I worked for a company other than my own consulting, working for myself, was 8 years.
Me, it was 6, or 7.
Yeah. And now, people are moving every couple of weeks, it seems like some
Right.
kids. But I, being facetious there, but it's rare that somebody stays in a position for more than a couple of years.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, that started back in the 80s and 90s when Silicon Valley was hiring. You walk across the street.
Yeah. They actually had cameras pointed at that, getting badge numbers of people. And if they walked across the street for an interview, then they couldn't get back in the building.
Right. So there's a lot more mobility. So it's very hard to take the long term or somebody to look at 10,000-foot view and see over several years. And so so you make a change and it really does result in a more reliable product. The chances of you still being there at the time the field data finally comes back 2 years later is very slim. And you may not, and that product anyway.
And the person making the decision whether to do it or not, to fund the change, they know they're already a foot out the door. Now, there are exceptions. There definitely are. I've worked with people that have been long-term in their company and really are passionate about that product and their customers. And I tend to gravitate towards those people because they tend to have that long view. The one that just showed up and their resume is 15 different jobs in the last 15 years, I'm like, all right, I don't have time for you.
Right.
Talk to somebody that cares.
But then again, I think there's some advantages about some mobility is that you do get some exchange of information, and a guy sometimes gets, like us as consultants, we get to see lots of different industries, different kinds of equipment, things like that make have a broader understanding of the whole, what these industries, each one may have problems. Well, every one of them, I think, is probably a new problem. I don't know that you come across the same problems in 2 different companies.
Not very often. There's
very
similarities sometimes, but it's often,
right.
No, it's very different. So as a brand new person coming in, is listen, understand the culture as best you can, understand what's working and not working.
That's right.
And then I break it down into, I gave her 2 paths. Is one, look for those big, hairy problems that, it'll take a while to solve and your boss really wants it solved. And the trouble is that, just as you were mentioning, Kirk, you're not going to get results for a while. And you're kind of in the shadows up until that point.
Right.
And the other one is look for those quick wins. If we make a minor change here, or we update this, or we improve that part of the process, here's money in the bank this quarter. Look for those. And fresh pair of eyes often can see those, where the people have been there for. I remember talking to James Kovacevic, and I've talked to him a bunch in this show, but he had a presentation I saw him do where he had a picture of this. It was a small, like a sup pump almost in a factory. It was a small pump, and it was loose from the floor. Its mountain was banging around all over the place. It was corroded over. It was, how that thing worked was beyond me.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, people walk past this every single day and nobody ever did anything about it or mentioned it to anybody and anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, it's the little things that if you fix the simple things and keep the place clean and orderly and organized and all those other things, it's easier to see the big things. If it's just if your storeroom is in total disarray all the time, then it's a big waste of time, and it has a lot of costs directly, but it also sets the stage that it's okay to leave stuff everywhere and don't worry about it, and let things be out of order, out of shape. And it just leads to a culture of clutter, for lack of better words. But what James was getting at is, if you're used to seeing things that are really in poor shape and they don't get fixed, why bother fixing anything else?
Right. Exactly. And yeah, you've got to get things in order. You've got to sort it out, organize it. Go into the warehouse and see, well, we had a whole bunch of these things sitting here and it's never been used. Did we stock for what we thought was going to be a problem part, things like that. So yeah, it's just, but just go in and first understand the situation and understand their specific problems, not not a general book,
and
priorities. And then talk to people, talk to the guys that are closest to the manufacturing process, the
design
warranty
teams, the procurement organization,
and especially the field service, and especially the warranty return issues and things like that. It just depends on the product. Depends on whether you're building a rocket or you're building an iPhone. It's kind of different situations.
Well, you get a grace period as being a brand new hire.
That's it.
You kind of get expected to go around and knock on doors and ask people questions, and people enjoy, if nothing else, telling war stories for an hour.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, I was in a big firefight, whatever. So I agree. It's kind of how, don't go in there and say, I know how to fix this, or be.
And please don't go in and say, I got a fresh copy of the Mill Handbook 217. All of your problems are done. I'm here now. No, that ain't going to work.
Unless you're going to the defense contractors, and that's the first thing.
You get a pay raise then. Yeah. You got your own copy. That's cool.
Make it reliable, but not too reliable. As one guy actually in the industry quoted his boss as saying.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard it. It's like, well, how are we going to make money if we're not,
Yeah.
That's just
60% of our profits come from program profits come from service and parts.
The right to repair is probably not happening in military contracts.
Oh, absolutely not. That's where they make their money. That's
I know.
You sell a product that needs a lot of replacement and maintenance.
Depot level or vendor only, manufacturer only repairs, and it's
kind of unfortunate, but we can't get in.
We've
that's
talked
a whole
about it
nother
before.
world, right? The culture and everything. Yeah, we mostly focus on commercial industries that are, have competitors.
Yeah, well, you do. I'll talk about reliability wherever. So.
Well, I can't I'll go ahead and teach Hall, and I have to military contractors, but they can't.
And they look at you going, "Why do I want to know how it fails?" So and you should use the line of, "Well, then you know how to set up your repair system, so you make your money."
Well, a lot of them already from, where I teach it in the test labs, they already know that they're seeing lots of failures and stress.
Yeah.
And
good. It works. It doesn't work.
Yeah. They know that. They just don't know that, they can't do things about it, because reaching back and again, is silos.
Yeah.
It's going over to the design team and saying, you could make this a little better. That just doesn't happen.
No,
It's not a good
But
thing.
it's, back to wrapping this one up a little bit is
Okay.
that it's, listen, go talk to people, get the background, get an understanding of what's failing and what happens when something fails, what kind of processes are in place to do failure analysis, what kind of process are in place to do design changes or stuff like that, or improvements.
Right.
What are the priorities? All of those kinds of things we mentioned. And then I'd start looking for those opportunities. A fresh pair of eyes goes, well,
Right.
what about this?
Right.
If we did that, that'd be easy to get done. Build your reputation by getting those quick wins or easy things to knock off that make a difference, but they're not the big culture-wide or organization-wide or whole factory type systems. Spend a day or two and help the storeroom get themselves organized and what kind of pain points they have, and make some allies across different parts
Make
of the
some there you just hit it. Make some allies.
Oh, we should have started with that.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's edit it and put that at the front.
Because that's one of the critical things, is not to alienate anybody by saying, I know better. You get allies and work with them
and help them solve their problems.
Yeah,
and
even though engineers aren't the most social guys people, you need to try and develop relationships that will help you
to make a difference.
Well, yeah, and you've got to, and if you've got to have some capital to work with before you try and push for change, whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And then it's see how it works and how well you fit in. And apparently these days is always keep your resume ready. You never know. But it's that. Yep. And the last piece, and then we got to wrap it up, is this, be aware of the options. I mean, your education hasn't ended yet. And so part of Ascendo and what we're doing is making people aware of all these different techniques and activities and tools and methods and all other stuff, and when and why to use them. Send us a question. If you're running into a problem, you don't have the education or background to how do I approach this, is fire off a question to us. We'd love it. It will give you our advice, and then we'll probably talk about it on the show. Yes. But the idea is that you're not on your own. You might be part of a team in an organization, or you might be the only reliability engineer starting. It's okay. There's a lot of other people have done it before, and some of us survived and did well, but we'd be happy to help if we can. So if you think listening to this and you got a question or an idea or want some advice, let us know. Head over to ascendoreliability.com/go/SOR. You can find a couple ways to get in touch with us there. There's also LinkedIn. All of the hosts of the show are on LinkedIn, and look forward to hearing from you there. And it's frankly the most common way I get information and questions and stuff. And then you can also send us a direct email or voicemail through our About pages. I think everybody's got their email or multiple ways to get in touch with us. So whatever works for you, let us know. We're not trying to hide or anything. We're trying to share what we know.
No, you're pretty active on LinkedIn, and yeah, we'd love to hear some of those people that are just entering into the reliability field. That would be very interesting to hear what their perceptions are of
challenges and all the other good stuff. And be happy to help if we can. So, cool. Yeah, it's been a while, Kirk, since we started new positions, huh?
Well, yeah, it's we can't erase all our knowledge, so we would come in with a very, and that's our experience would show that we can quickly go through a lot of the non value added things and quickly focus on those. So anyway,
except for the paperwork for the healthcare system, that's just going to take forever. But that's a different problem.
Right. All right, Fred.
All right, cool, Kirk. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care.
Okay, take care.
Cheers. Thanks for listening to Speaking of Reliability. We invite you to join the conversation. If you have a question or a topic that you think we should discuss in a future show, please let us know. You can find a comment box below the episode show notes, or just leave a note as part of a review on iTunes.